This happened to me around 10 or so years ago now. Forgive me if it takes a little while to type this all up. I do not have it pre-typed because it just hurts a lot to think about. It is something that I will never be able to forget. It's something that I relive every single day of my life. It was the summertime. My son was off school and we were out having fun near the coast and shit. My son was around 13 years old at this time. To tell the truth, we did not always see eye to eye. It was hard to connect to him because we didn't really have any of the same interests. That was until he got really into diving underneath the ocean. It started with just a fun family trip with his mom and I. I'm talking really low level shit with just like a snorkel at first. Until he got really hooked on it, and every chance we could, he wanted to go. His mom wasn't really into it, but I figured it could be a good chance for me to bond with my son. I limited him for a long time out of fear, and it wasn't until he was around 12 years old that I let him do proper dive training. The instructors were super helpful and helped alleviate a lot of my anxiety. He was a confident learner, and he picked things up pretty quickly. I got certified in everything too, as he needed me to dive alongside him. I think his depth limit at that age, even with me, was around 60 feet or so. Pretty significant for someone that young. This was just supposed to be another fun day. We had a ton of activities planned, but my son was insistent on going diving first thing. His mom was with us, but stayed at home to wait for us to be done. We had been doing this together for quite a while at this point. We geared up and hopped in and got to diving. Like I said, 60 feet was our limit, which we had never fully reached before, which put our ascension stop at around 15 feet. I had to be really cautious and strict because my son, knowing him, would just shoot up with no care in the world. I wouldn't call him reckless or a thrill seeker, but it was really easy for him to get really caught up when he's having fun, so much so that he cannot always see the bigger picture. To tell the truth, I was a little bit ill from the night previous, and by ill, I mean slightly hungover. I really did not want to let my son down though. Usually, I'm basically touch tight with him at all times and am fully keeping up. Today though, I could really feel how sluggish I was. I started to fall behind a few feet and took to observing more than anything. This was all going fine until my son shot around to me randomly. He waved a hand signal over to me and pointed down. He had spotted some kind of a glint a little further down. It looked to be maybe 80 feet. He keeps looking at me expectantly and pointing, and I am shaking my head. But before I even have the chance to get closer or do anything, he shoots down, like lightning quick. I felt like I was moving through sludge in comparison. He got really fucking brave and was down there in a flash. By the time I had even gotten close, I noticed he was stuck on something. It looked like some kind of big netting that was stuck down there. It looked caught on some coral. He was flailing and clearly panicking, and I started to panic too. If he kept doing that, he was going to be too tired to make it back up and would not have any oxygen left. Luckily, I have a diving knife with me, so I know I can just cut him free. Then I see that glint again as I am swimming closer. It's coming from the sediment or whatever. I see one glint, and then I see a second, and before I know it, I can see a giant shape hovering there, towering over the coral, towering over my son. I don't know what it is. I am not close enough to see. I am swimming at an angle, trying to make it there as fast as I can. My son has seen the thing and is desperately trying to swim away. He is making hand signals to me and trying to reach for me. This thing must be about 10 feet long, whatever it is. I am getting closer. I start to see parts of its face. It looks like some kind of fucking catfish. It has the fucking whiskers or whatever they are. Its mouth is gaping and is larger than anything I had ever seen. I didn't think catfish could be this big if that's what it is. I am almost there now. Time seems to be moving so slowly. I feel like I am barely moving, and I see this catfish drift closer towards my son, practically touching him now. And then I witness the worst thing I ever have in my life, something I have never been able to get out of my head. I see the catfish move towards my son. I see it move its giant mouth towards him, and in one swift action, I see my son just disappear. All that is left in front of me is one of his flippers slowly floating off in the distance. I was panicking so hard, but I was put straight into flight mode. I raced to try and chase the thing, but it drifted off. I could not chase it. I was running out of air. The stress and the struggle had caused me to use more than I thought I had. I raced back up to the surface. I did not even bother with the decompression stop like an idiot. It fucked me up bad, and I felt sick as fuck after it. All that mattered to me at that point though was trying to get help. In all honesty, I wasn't really thinking. I didn't know what I could actually do. I didn't know what anyone else could do. I just needed something. I found some other divers, quite a large group of them, and I was begging them hysterically, just rambling over and over about a giant catfish. I don't think any of them believed me at all. I think they were considering telling me to fuck off, if not for me finally being able to gasp out, "My son is gone down there." Again, they were still skeptical, but a couple of experienced divers agreed to go out to where it happened. Waiting for them to come back up again was heart-wrenching. My joints all felt like they were pulsing with this aching feeling. I felt dizzy and could not hold a clear picture in my vision, no matter which direction I looked. I wanted to go to sleep and for this nightmare to be over. When I saw the divers reappear without my son with them, I basically fell on my knees and started sobbing uncontrollably, just for like 5 or 10 minutes straight. In the meantime, they contacted the police and tried their best to calm me down. The divers told their story to the police, and the police later asked for mine once I was more stable and felt less sick. I told them everything I had written here. Then I asked them what happened to my son, what the divers saw. They were hesitant and said that they did not want to upset me. They gave in when I insisted though. The divers had dived down as quickly as they could. It did not take them long to find the netting that I had mentioned. When they saw that, they realized I was not lying. But they also caught sight of something else near the netting. Something I must have blocked out in my fear and panic. They caught the sight of blood still mingling around in the water. It looked to be quite a lot of it, as it had lingered for a while and not fully dissipated. That did not make sense to me, considering what I saw, until the police told me what else the divers found. That flipper that I saw drifting in the water, well, they found it too, but it was not just a flipper. My son's leg was still attached to it. The giant catfish or whatever kind of creature it was, it did not get him whole. It managed to bite all of him except for his leg, crushed the bone and went straight through, a single clean bite. My life was ruined after that. Losing a child is already impossibly difficult, but knowing that it was my fault, knowing that I could have saved him if I wasn't so stupid and negligent. I should have known I was not 100% and just delayed the dive. We had plenty of time. In trying to make my son think I am cool and to make him happy, I ended up getting him killed. I was too much of a coward to face his mother. I asked the police to break the news. What kind of a pussy does that? When I finally got home, she could not even look at me. Our relationship was broken beyond repair. She was not interested in hearing my side of the story, and I knew telling it would not cure my guilt. So often, I think about giving up completely. I think that's why I decided to share this here. Here I am now, a broken and useless alcoholic who does not work and has nothing to show for his life. Don't fuck with the say. A bit of fun is not worth this. This happened to my father. He was a Navy diver with over a decade's worth of experience. He gets hired for a salvage job. He gets paired up with one other guy. The job is to separate a chain from a huge anchor. The anchor is around 150 meters down in the ocean, so they have to dive down there. The two are getting to work. All of a sudden, they hear this kind of snap or something. They feel a vibration in the water. They look at the ship. The entire thing is starting to heave towards them. Little did they know, but the ship's stabilizing system had fucked up and was not working anymore. My father and his partner are standing directly down on this anchor and are working on the chain. In like an instant, my father sees the bell coming down. It's heading for both of them. My father manages to push his partner out of the way and falls with him. In that split second while they are falling, the bell hits the anchor and they feel the pressure. My father knows for sure that if he did not react like that, then the two of them would have been crushed. It would have been an instant death with no chance for survival. It still gives him shivers to this day. I have just my basic NAUI certification, 60 feet, no wrecks, no caves, etc. I was about 16, on vacation with my mom and stepdad and a friend of mine, and we decided to go for a dive. So we are in Jamaica, and they are taking us to a wreck at 90 feet. Now, I'm a filthy casual when it comes to scuba, and I get kinda panicky underwater. I tend to be the one to run out of O2 first, and me and my buddy have to head back up. Sorry, Luke. Anyways, we get to this old military boat, huge, and head inside. It's cramped. These boats are made to be tight when you don't have tanks on your back and a BCD and regulators and all that shit. The floor plates are rusted out, and a big fucking moray eel, about as big around as my thigh, is looking up at us between the metal studs or whatever between the slats, and doing the mouth open close thing. I am anxious as hell. I am last in line going in, and from talking at the surface, we knew that the plan was we go into the bridge, take some photos, then explore a bit and head back to the boat. Heading into this narrow hallway, all of a sudden, my buddy stops. After about 10 seconds, he turns and points out the other direction. I'm like, what? And he points again, back the other direction. So I manage to twist myself around and head back out to the outside deck of the ship. I turn around, and there is no one following me. I am alone on the deck of the ship at like 85 feet. I head back out into the hallway, and I don't see anyone there. It's like a maze inside. I look around for a bit and can't find them. Okay, don't panic. What did I learn in my training? Lose track of your body, look for the bubbles. I glance around, and there are bubbles coming from every part of the ship. I have no idea where anyone is. Windows on the outside of the ship. I swim around to try and peek at them, and start getting caught in a current. I panic. Do I surface? Do I go back into the boat? Do I just sit on the deck? I see my buddy peek back out and give me a what the fuck look, so I follow him back in. We get to the bridge and take a photo, and I get the dive lead's attention and signal I need to go up. I have 900 psi. You normally like to start heading to the surface with 1000 or so left. Him, 1900? Me, no, 900. I'm out of air, surface. Him, come this way. So we go into the bathroom, and everyone starts taking pictures, pretending to be sitting on the toilets in the sunken boat. My mom, who is on the dive with us, realizes what's happening. We swap buddies. Luke goes with my stepdad, and my mom and I go to the surface. She has got her octopus, extra regulator, ready to go the entire time. Waiting for decompression and off-gassing below the boat was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. It started getting real hard to breathe. I made it back to the boat safe and sound, and I don't think I've really been diving since. That was 17 years ago now. My uncle used to scuba dive around Georgian Bay, Ontario a lot. It used to be a very busy shipping area, so lots of wrecks from the late fall months. He liked collecting the old bottles and china cups and things like that. He wasn't a superstitious person at all, but sometimes he saw things that freaked him out. Here are a few. Once, he was diving with his friend, and they went down to a passenger shipwreck. Huge boat, pretty old. His friend was super excited because it had the potential to have a fair bit of antique china based on the nature of the ship. As they were getting closer to the bottom, my uncle noticed that the lake floor was looking hazy, almost like a fog was covering the area around the ship. It wasn't until he got a lot closer that he started freaking out. He was looking down at ghostly bodies and faces of hundreds of people who all died in the wreck. His friend could not see any of it, so he kept quiet for years about it. He saw a few ghostly faces a few more times diving in other spots too. One more for good measure. He had a bit of an obsession with the story of this one ship called the Wabuno. Rumor had it that the cargo ship went down near a place now called Sans Souci during a bad storm. Below the water, near the shore on a nearby island, there is a visible piece of the hull of the wreck, and they have some history about it on a plaque. The rest of the wreck has never been found, which means the captain's safe is still at the bottom of the lake somewhere. My uncle wanted to find that captain's safe, so he started looking into the plotted course for its travel, except then, he noticed that where the piece of hull washed up close to the shore does not make sense given the island shapes and plotted course and the supposed course of the storm that blew through. So he did some more research and found the original building plans of the ship and figured out that the bolts in the supposed found piece of the hull do not match the plans. So he plotted a list of about 15 different spots he figured the real wreck could be, based on all of the information he had, and he started diving one spot at a time. He was 4 or 5 spots from the end of his list, and as he was descending, he noticed that the lake floor seemed to be rippling and moving. As he got closer to the bottom, he saw that the whole bottom was covered in crayfish. So many that he could not see the actual ground below them. Crayfish are scavengers, so they only gather like that when there is something to eat, and a lot of it. He did not even try to touch down, and went right back up to the surface. After a few more encounters with the faces of the dead at the bottom of the lake, he stopped diving because he could not deal with it mentally. His buddy went diving to one of the last spots on his Wabuno list a few years later and found a porthole window matching the plans of the ship. So my uncle figured between that and the crayfish lakebed, he was pretty close to the real wreck. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I went on a group dive with an initial descent down a line to 85 feet where it attached to a wreck of a World War II cargo ship. After exploring it for a few minutes, we climbed up the side of the bank that caused the wreck to 30 feet. We descend back to 85 feet before making our way back up the line to the boat. My father was my dive buddy, and collectively, we made a series of stupid decisions that day. 1. We were the only ones without a dive line. We figured there were 5 groups of divers, and we could just stay real close and follow at least one group back. The dive line is on a reel that attaches to the bottom of the descent line, so you can find your way back to the boat. 2. My father knew this BCD had a minor leak and chose to use it anyway. 3. Even without the leak, he uses way more air than me, where he ends up in the red, while I have over a quarter of a tank. I've told him he needs a bigger tank, but he insists he is fine. 4. We did not discuss any of the above with any other dive group. The first half of the dive went perfect, and we were having a great time. We followed everyone else and their dive lines up to about the 30 feet mark, and everyone was digging around in the sand and rocks for old cargo. My father and I were trying to pick out the most intact Jeep piston from a large pile when I finally looked up and everyone else was gone. 5. This is where we should have just surfaced and waved for the dive boat, knowing that it was not too far from our location. Instead, my father signaled to head back in the direction of the mooring line back to the boat. I followed. Not too long after, my father signaled he was lost, but I recognized the landmarks and signaled to follow me. A moment later, he tapped me on the shoulder to show me his air gauge. It was well into the red, and we were about 70 feet with the line not far away. I tried to signal that it was just past the 2 tankers ahead, but he pointed up to a line above our heads and just started swimming for it. When he grabbed on, it immediately went slack. It was a line for a lobster boy. Then he just continued to swim up and disappeared from sight. I had to choose to follow or head for the line. Because I only thought I knew where the line was, I decided to follow him. For those who don't know, you need to hang out for about 5 minutes in 15 to 20 feet of water for a decompression stop after a deep dive, or you can get nitrogen bubbles in your blood, and that is not good. There are also currents around that depth that can sweep you out to sea without you even noticing. When I got to 20 feet, my father was nowhere to be seen, and I had to choose to either decompress and risk being swept away, or heading right back to the surface to hopefully be close to the boat and risk blood bubbles. I still don't know if I made the right choice, but I chose to decompress because I could not see myself affording the medical bills for a stint in a decompression chamber. All I could think of was the movie Open Water. I was sure that I would surface, and there would be nothing around me but water, and I would be battling great whites until I was rescued, drowned, or eaten. When I finally surfaced, my father was 50 yards to my left, and the boat was under 100 yards ahead of me. We are now proud owners of dive lines, and my father bought a brand new BCD. He still does not think he needs a bigger tank. The one and only time I went diving in Thailand was to get my PADI certification. It did not happen. I reached the 12-meter limit, but all the way down, I felt like someone was digging their fingers into my ears. I was trying to equalize, but to no avail. While at the bottom, I had no issues, but upon surfacing, I had to cough and clear my throat. Well, my spit was basically all blood. I spit again, and it's the same thing, just blood. I asked the diving instructor if that is normal, and he tells me that sometimes the capillaries in your nose can burst from equalizing, so that calms me down. Then I realize my hearing is at like 40% it seems. I am trying to clear them, but I cannot. I end up going to the doctor, and he tells me my ears were swollen and there was some blood. Turns out I had barotrauma, which is basically tissue damage caused by a difference in pressure. I also had a flight 2 days later, which was murder on my ears again. Needless to say, this was my first and last time diving. I know it's nothing amazing, but just thought I would share my experience. I went and got hazmat certified for this particular instance, among other certifications, and through certain contacts, I first started working on a 127 feet charter boat. This boat normally will go out to the Chandeleur Islands, located off the coast of Louisiana, for several days/nights, and drop skiffs in the water where clients were guided around the islands to fish. Also, I would suggest if anyone has the opportunity to go out to these islands, to do it. It is incredible there, and the fishing is always on point. Back to the story. I was working on the boat for about 2 weeks, and then was transferred to an offshore division that consisted of about 10 to 15 boats. These boats, by the way, were strictly personal fishing and commercial charter boats, with the largest being 57 feet, and an average price of around $100,000, and a couple were worth well over $1 million conservatively. Our job was to leave at 6 a.m. and go out and look for oil or any marine life, etc. that may have been impacted by the spill. For those not in the know, this was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico that happened in 2010. Over the course of nearly 3 months, an estimated 210 million gallons of crude oil were released into the Gulf. If we found oil, crude, oil slicks, or anything else at a place or not normal, we would log it, take pictures, and report it. For about a month, we were only finding sticks. One day, we went out about 120 miles, and I will never forget the sights or smells that day. The crude, we called it mud because that is exactly what it looked like, was everywhere and ridiculously thick. On average, 6 inches, and in some places, up to 1 feet. It was like super thick putty, and to be honest, is actually really hard to describe. To put this into perspective though, if you have ever been mud riding or seen a truck get stuck in the mud, that's exactly what it was like to see these boats out on the water, and a lot worse. This, over time, destroyed the boat's hulls, among other things, causing significant damage. We were the first group to find the crude and report it coming in that close to the shore. Also, during this time, we found a life jacket belonging to one of the guys who actually worked on the oil rig. Words honestly cannot describe what that was like. It was a very surreal moment, to say the least. So we eventually get back to shore, and that is when things start to change. This operation had now shifted from how the hell are we going to clean this up and what the hell are we going to do with it? It wasn't until this point that we all realized how serious this was, not only for the coastline, but for the environment as a whole. The next morning at the dock, we noticed that pallets of skimmers and absorbent boom had been dropped off. We were to use the skimmers to round up as much crude as we could, tie off the skimmers into a circle, and place the boom together with the crude inside. That would be then brought to decon stations by another division who was assigned that job. These were the shrimp boats. Reminder, our job originally was to just spot, find, take pictures, and report, not necessarily handle the oil if at all possible. To sum up how that operation went, it was complete shit, and that is being nice. It got to the point where instead of myself being the only one who could technically handle the crude on my boat, everyone else working the boats eventually ended up in Tyvek suits, handling this foreign, toxic-ass substance in 100+ degree temperature heat for 12+ hours a day. Side note, each boat had to have at least one hazmat certified person on board at all times who was supposed to be the only person handling the crude. Also, only 4 people were allowed to work on each boat in our division. We also ended up getting stranded twice by the shrimpers who decided to call it a day at lunchtime, leaving us with no way to move the crude while also not allowing us to leave because we could not just leave the rounded up crude unattended. Yeah, absolutely miserable. Nobody could ever have imagined what we were getting into, and along with that, BP themselves had no idea what they were getting into, and their claims of being prepared and we are on top of this with all available resources, blah blah blah, was completely overshadowed by the fact that they truly did not know how to run and contain an operation of this size and magnitude, and that was seen day in and day out. This became a great day-to-day challenge up until the point when my shitty-ass boss got caught being greedy, charging BP for every miscellaneous thing that he bought, which caused all of his boats to be shut down. His first check was said to be upwards of $450,000, and that is rounding it off. During this time, both the employers, the boat owners especially, and employees were making some serious money. What ruined it were the greedy bastards who just could not get enough. This in turn caused less boats that were actually doing it for the right reasons from being able to make a change out on the water. In total, we worked a little bit over 3 months. Going out every day and seeing schools of dead fish, dead sea turtles, and the water that you grew up on literally turned into a mud pit, as that is exactly what it was disheartening to say the least. Though all that happened, and we dealt with so much, there was one time where we saw that what we were doing might have been helping just a little bit. On one of our last trips, we were about 20 or so miles out past the barrier islands when we could see from a distance what looked like the water boiling and had a red, orange, and yellow color to it. When we got close, we realized it was a school of thousands of redfish and jack crevalle that stretched as far as we could see and was about 100 yards or so wide. Being in the middle of that, surrounded by these fish, just could not be described with words. It was incredible, and that was the one moment that gave us hope that what we were doing was not a waste, and that we were in fact doing something worthwhile. Still, to this day, it is the most incredible thing I have seen on the water, aside from the oil spill itself. Lastly, just to throw this out there, there is still tons of oil out in the Gulf, regardless of what people say. It is just buried and on the seafloor due to the so-called dispersants that BP claim would break the oil up. It can still be found on the islands, beaches, and marshes. The marine life is just now getting back to normal again in the past 2 years, and it is only going to get better as long as some shit like this does not happen again. There is so much more that I could talk about from this time, ranging from the oil itself to the things BP supposedly did and did not do. That is all for another day though. Again, sorry for the long post, but this one experience is always the one I come back to when asked about the things I have seen on the water, and with this thread, I felt it should be mentioned.